Alright, Supercell, well, we're a dirty gemmer. Let's go ahead and open up this super magical chest. Hopefully we get a Mega Knight. I mean, we're guaranteed to get one because it's the second chest, and I didn't get one in the first chest. So here it comes, guys. Boom! And we already know what it is. It's gonna be a Mega Knight. So level 2 Mega Knight, yeah, buddy! What is my epic Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. Today I have a very special first-time pro on the channel representing Team Queso, also the captain of Team Israel for CR or Plex Chat Worlds now. It is RomK7. Rom, you're known as one of the best HOG players in the world. I'm so excited to have you on. How you doing, dude?
I'm fine, Ash. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. We're doing something that we've never done before here on CWA. We've done a lot of HOG videos, but we've never talked about the nuances and the intricacies of different HOG decks. You can see on my screen here, I have a bunch of HOG cycle decks. They all range from like 2.8 to 2.9 elixir. They're basically the same type of deck, but little changes here and there. Either archers for musketeer, it could be a tornado for a cannon, it could even be a bats for goblins. You can see the different variations, or ice golem for knight. So we're going to talk about all the different variations. You're pretty high on ladder right now. You're, let's see, where are you ranking right now?
No, actually, right now I dropped, but I was like top 200.
Okay, you were top 200 like yesterday, but you had a little bit of a tilt session, but either way, you're still pretty high. And I really admire the fact that you're a HOG cycle player who is really high on ladder, like top 200. That's hard to do. It's something that I can't do. So I want to kind of pick your brain first about, why don't you kind of introduce us to HOG cycle in your eyes, and what do you think the keys are for a good HOG cycle player before we kind of dive into the differences in decks?
Well, I think the key to know how to HOG cycle is to know when to send the HOG. I usually go from counter attacks with the musketeer or the ice golem to a push of a HOG rider. You should probably catch your enemy off guard when you have HOG rider.
Okay, so all about knowing when to play the HOG. When you say catch your enemy off guard, that's easier said than done, I think, right? I mean, sometimes a good player will probably know when the HOG is coming. So talk a little bit more about that. How do you catch them off guard?
Well, I mean, if I play like against a bowler deck, like a deck that has the bowler, which counters the HOG pretty heavily. So sometimes when I know that he knows that I'm going to send the HOG, like when I have ice golem or knight on the bridge, so I like sending the ice golem alone, and then the HOG rider on the other side. So he will place the bowler on nothing, like on only ice golem, and I can catch him off guard of like there.
Okay, okay. So what about the deck in general? I mean, that's a great tip there, obviously, like kind of juking to fake that you're going to push in one lane, then going opposite lane. What about defensively? What's your mentality? Are you playing kind of a lot of defense through offense in this deck?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the deck. Like if I play against like a golem deck, so I usually like to go hard on the other lane if he plays the big tank to catch him with low elixir, or if he plays like a cycle deck like HOG Rider or I don't know, cycle balloon. So I like having the musketeer from the defense to go to an offense, or to split push with like ice golem and musketeer in one lane and HOG on the other lane. Like depends on the deck.
Okay, and what do you think of all the decks that we're going to show today? What do you think is the absolute strongest deck in the current meta?
I think the HOG cycle with the musketeer, ice golem, and bats is right now the strongest. Bats are pretty strong card generally, and I see a lot of balloons, so I think it's the way to go.
What about the tornado versus like the cannon?
Well, so I like to change those, like whatever the decks that I used to say. Like if I'm used to say HOG riders and I don't know, giant pushes, so I like more using the tornado. But if I see like golems, so I don't know, even mortars, or decks that, you know, that tornado can't give you value, so I'll switch to the cannon.
Okay, so you would advise people out there in terms of that defensive structure versus the tornado, you would advise the viewers to use whatever they feel like whatever works best against what they're seeing more in their kind of trophy level?
Yeah, I think so. Tornado is probably kind of better because because the deck is cheap and you can usually do like values with the Musketeer, but the Cannon is really good too. Like even against Hog Riders, the Cannon gives you value because Cannon is 3 and Hog is 4.
Okay. I wanted to ask you too about a cycle in Hog decks, right? So how much are you paying attention to like what cards you play and when in order to like cycle faster back to the Hog? And is there a such thing in a deck this cheap, this fast, as having like a bad cycle? If so, how do you fix it? Talk a little bit about rotation and cycle.
Well, so decks like that usually can't have a bad cycle because you can cycle pretty fast and get your and get your cards to line up the way you want them to line. I do put like sometimes I like put the Hog Rider before the Ice Spirit or something like that, so I have the Hog Rider faster or the card I need faster. Like if I play against Lavaloon, so if he goes Lava on one lane, I want to go Hog on the other lane and then put the Musketeer. I usually put the Musketeer in the back, then go with the Hog, so I will have another Musketeer in case he will Lightning or Fireballs up my Musketeer that I drop.
Yeah, that's really important. So let me get that straight. You're playing, if you're going against a heavy beatdown deck, especially a Lavaloon deck, you're playing your Musketeer before you hit the other lane. That way you can cycle back faster.
Because I will usually need a Musketeer again to defend and not the Hog Rider.
And we'll talk about that specifically in just a second here. Now, before we kind of dive into the differences on the decks, and we're also going to do kind of a play-by-play against Lavaloon, because that is a difficult matchup for Hog decks, or some people have difficulty handling those decks. Before we do that, what would you say, looking at other Hog players, what would you say like the most common mistake, or maybe just a concept that people fail to grasp?
Well, I see a lot of players put the Hog Rider in the beginning of the match, like the first thing they do. I don't like doing it. I used to do it before, but because a lot of decks have, like, sometimes it's the Night Witch or other heavy cards that just generally punish you if you start with the Hog Rider and you're off Elixir because it doesn't double Elixir and Elixir. Yeah, you have less Elixir, so it's probably be harder for you to defend. So I think starting with a Hog Rider is usually a bad move.
Bad move starting out with a Hog Rider. What about one more question? I keep saying one more question about X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so when are you sending in a solo Hog versus like a Knight or an Ice Golem to kind of tank for your Hog? Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, it depends. Usually it depends on the cycle and if I need the Ice Golem for defense. I really like sending the Hog with the Ice Golem because it usually grants you so much value instead of sending the Hog alone, like against mini P.E.K.K.A. So the alone Hog can do like 1 shot, but when you have the Ice Golem, it can do 3 shots. So like for 2 Elixir, you added 2 shots to the tower. And even against Night Witch, it could be like 6 shots against 1 shot, if I'm not wrong. Ice Golem, okay. Usually I will have the Hog with the Ice Golem.
Okay, interesting, because that's something that I kind of, for whatever reason, I kind of struggle with. What about Knight? Is it the same situation where you're playing the Knight kind of right before the Hog as well, or does it change a little bit when you're adding that extra Elixir?
It's not about the Elixir, it's about the purpose of the card. Knight can be lured away, and Knight doesn't have the slow effect. So if I play like a Knight with the Hog Rider, my opponent can lure the Knight to the side with 1 Elixir Skeletons, let's say, and then deal with the Hog Rider, and then deal with the Knight, and have a big counter push without me doing like the extra amount of damage that I could have done.
Okay.
So it's different.
Why do you prefer, I mean, this is a really dumb question, but I figure we'll ask about it. You only have 2 spells, obviously, in these decks. Why do you prefer
3 spells.
Zap? What spell am I missing? I see the
Tornado.
Zap. Oh, okay. Well, I'm just talking in general. Like.
Okay.
Okay, you're right. But I mean, like Zap versus Log and Fireball versus like Poison. Can you talk a little bit about the differences between those 2 options for spells?
Yeah, sure. I like using the Zap because there is a lot of bats. In defense, it will be hard for me to deal with the bats if I will have Log, so I like using the Zap. I used to have Log when Goblins were popular. It depends on what's popular. Like if you see more Goblins than Zap, so you should go with the Log. And Fireball versus Poison. Well, usually people go with the Fireball because Hog Rider is, let's say, low health card, depends to other tanks who deal damage to the tower. So you want the troops that deal damage to the Hog to die as fast as you can, so the Hog Carnage the Tower. And if you compare it to Poison, it slow kills the troops, so the Hog will usually do a lot less damage. But I like running the Poison sometimes if I face a lot of tanks, because Poison can kill the Musketeer, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about some of the differences then, beyond just the spells. That makes perfect sense, by the way, about the zap spell, especially with bats everywhere. But speaking of bats, let's start there. Why would someone want to play bats over goblins, and what trophy ranges would you recommend using bats versus goblins in a deck?
I will recommend using bats or goblins in instance. Depends on the decks you are going to be against. Like if you play against balloons, so you probably want to go with the bats, and if you play against I don't know, if you play against graveyard, so you want to go with the goblins, because even if you poison the goblins, it takes time for them to die. It really depends. Like if you see lots of zaps against you, so again, you should use the goblins because they don't die to zap. It really depends on the deck you see against you. Trophy ranges, I see a lot of, like every single match I face bats, and but like there is a lot of log baits as well, and because log baits have logs, so I like using the bats because it's an annoying card that the enemy find hard to deal with compared to if you have the goblins.
When you're sending in your Hog Rider, obviously sometimes you're sending it in with goblins, sometimes you're sending it in with ice golems, sometimes you're sending it in with knight, and sometimes you're sending it in with bats. So how do you decide? And why not start with bats, because we're kind of on the topic. How often do you send in Hog and bats if they don't have zap?
You can say that pretty often. They deal a lot of damage and they're very fast. It's really hard to deal with them. And even if I know they have zap, sometimes I say the bats with my Hog Rider just to make him use the zap and don't have enough elixir to use another defense troop.
Oh, okay. That's cool too, and then maybe you can cycle back to the Hog, depending on their deck. Maybe you can cycle back to the Hog Bats before they can cycle back to Zap, maybe. I don't know, in double elixir time. Okay, what about Goblins versus, like, let's say you have both Goblins and an Ice Golem and a Hog and Fireball in hand, so that's your hand. Fireball, Hog, Ice Golem, and Goblins. And it's early on in the match. Obviously, if you know they have Log, you're going to play the Ice Golem instead of the Goblins. But let's say you don't know exactly what they have. What makes you decide whether to play that Ice Golem or whether to play the Goblins with the Hog?
Well, so usually before the overtime, I will not send my Hog with the Ice Golem because it's a 6 elixir push early on, what makes me really low in elixir. So I will usually just send the Hog Rider or the Hog Goblins, depends on whatever he put on the map. But in double elixir, I will usually always go with the Hog Ice Golem. It counters the tornado, because if they have tornado, they can't tornado because the Ice Golem will block it. And just generally, the Ice Golem is good. If I know they have the log, so I probably will not go with the Goblins because it's just clear value for them. They kill the Goblins, and extra they do damage to the Ice Golem and the Hog Rider, or just the Hog Rider if they don't have the Ice Golem. But again, if I know they're low on elixir and I know they will not have enough, like if they have like, I don't know, like Knight, like Mini P.E.K.K.A. and Log, but they have only 4 elixir. So if they will place the Mini P.E.K.K.A., the Goblins will destroy the Mini P.E.K.K.A. and then the Hog will demolish the tower. So I will know that they will have to use Log, and then my Hog Rider will do a lot of damage until they will have enough elixir for the Mini P.E.K.K.A.
Okay. So
does that make sense?
It does make sense. So you're being like, you're kind of choosing your spots at the same time you're trying to take advantage and punish them when necessary. And that's something I find that's like, it's something that you probably learn with repetition, but if you know, talk about the different types of pushes that you do as a Hog player, and talk about when the right time is to do each one. So is there ever a time where you'll go absolutely all out, like Ice Golem, Hog, Goblins, Fireball, or something like that?
Yeah, sure. If I know they have Golem in the other lane, I will usually go with Hog Goblins. Maybe even I'll add the Ice Golem just to punish him really hard in the other lane, because a deck that have only Musketeer and Goblins in it will usually have a hard time defending Golem and the super troops. So I will want him to focus on defending the Hog Rider, so he will not be able to support that other tank in the other lane. and that way I can get clear value. Like against Lava, which is a card that doesn't deal a lot of damage to the tower, if you go all in on the other lane and he will have to defend it, you can defend it with Musketeer, and it's like 4 to 7 value, and then the Musketeer goes to the tower and need to defend it, so it's like straight value to you.
Okay. What about the Mega Knight? How do you deal with him?
Again, you have the Musketeer. It deals really well with the Mega Knight. Fireball Zap in overtime kills the Mega Knight as well. Usually I do combos with the Tornado as well, like if I know we have Minion Horde or something like that, and I don't have Fireball, or I need my Fireball to other things. So Tornado, like I pre-Tornado his side of the map, and then Zap if he puts something, and it can kill the Goblins, it can kill Minion Horde. And usually it just clears other stuff on my lane, like if we have, I don't know, Bowler on the back or something, I can take the Bowler to the other lane with the Tornado and then attack. I want to do it before double Elixir because it will demolish my other tower. But it's like kind of combos you can use with the deck.
That's interesting, the pulling the Bowler, pulling the hard counter to the opposite lane to be like, get out of my way, I'm coming through.
Yeah, even Mini P.E.K.K.A. and stuff, you can do it.
What about Mini P.E.K.K.A. in a Hog Cycle deck? Do you think that like the old school Mini P.E.K.K.A. Hog Cycle has a place in this meta, or would you just prefer the cheaper alternatives of the Ice Golem or the Knight?
Well, Mini P.E.K.K.A. doesn't replace them. It's a different deck. Usually people use the Mini P.E.K.K.A. with the Princess, and maybe Rocket even or Lightning. It's different decks. I like playing with those two. It depends. Like Mini P.E.K.K.A. is really good against the Mega Knight. Especially if you had it like with an Ice Golem or Knight to distract it, it can really kill him pretty fast because the Mega Knight isn't like high damage dealer like the P.E.K.K.A.
Yeah.
So
okay. All right, so want to go ahead. I really want to do a play-by-play on this Lavaloon deck because, man, they can be a pain to deal with. So I have it paused at the beginning, and let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. Tell me when to start.
All right, 3, 2, 1, play. So while we're prepping for this match, can you also talk a little bit about Archers versus Musketeer and when to use Archers versus Musketeer?
Yeah, again, I will usually go with the Musketeer. Archers is better if you don't have the Musketeer to be maxed, because if the Musketeer dies to Fireball, it doesn't worth it. But if you face like a lot of graveyards, let's say, so Fireball, so Archers are pretty like a lot better against graveyards than the Musketeer.
Okay. So if you don't have Musketeer for maxed, or it's like really low level, then you go ahead and you use Archers. So here you go. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So if you don't have the Musketeer in the... Like, if your Musketeer dies to Fireball, so use Archers.
Okay. If your Musketeer dies to Fireball around where you are, use Archers. Okay, so we saw what you just did here. You hit the opposite lane hard. One thing I've noticed throughout all your replays is that, man, you are pretty aggressive with the Fireball at times. Like, you're not afraid to throw that Fireball at if there's any sort of value. Why is that? Yeah.
Because, as you said, because it gives me the value. Spells usually gives you a lot of value, especially the log. I mean, you can never see a log place without getting value. But if it gives me value, like, why not? Like, unless I know I need it to defend something else, I will usually use the Fireball. Yeah, like, again, depends on what he does. I will not Fireball like Skeletons.
And you're making this look pretty easy. Well, let me ask you, why aren't you placing the Musketeer first? Why are you hitting the other lane first?
I don't think I had the Musketeer in Cycle.
Oh, okay, that would probably be it, right?
Yeah, right. So, like, as you said, like, it pushes like that. I like to get get everything far from my tower and then...
Textbook defense here, Rom. And he says, good game. He knows it's in the bag there. That was really good. Now, against a Lavaloon or a Golem deck, for that matter, is there a certain point that you'd like to be in the match to feel comfortable before going into double elixir time when you know you're going to be at a disadvantage? Like, do you have to have a tower down, or...?
Tower down or at least one tower low, because I know I will have to go hard on the other lane to not let them support the lava. So, like I did here, I had a Musketeer first, so I was able to do another Musketeer and then even the Ice Golem to block the Mega Minion. So again, with the Tornado and then the Fireball, it can not even touch my tower.
Wow, that is incredible. I mean, you make it look so easy, but it's just such good defense, especially how you use the Ice Spirit as well. So seeing how you use the ice spirit so often and so well, I imagine that you highly prefer it over skeletons.
Yeah, skeletons aren't a replacement for the ice spirit. They can replace the goblins if you want something cheap. I don't like using them because they are pretty weak.
Hmm.
3 skeletons are just doesn't worth the 1 elixir.
No, it's so much better to have that ice golem for one more elixir, right?
Well, yes, again, I don't. Uh, yes, I imagine, yeah.
Okay. So that was a really good match in terms of showing us how like textbook to defend against Lavaloon. Rom, I think that I've learned a lot about different types of hog decks and kind of how to play them for better success, especially like covering the common mistakes and the differences between swapping in and out different cards. So just to be clear, this deck that I'm showing right here, guys, is Rom K's very favorite deck, the one with Musketeer and the one with Tornado, and you saw how well it did there. Is that the deck that you pretty much play in the top 200, Rom?
Yeah, I really like this deck.
Okay, cool. So guys, give it a try and see what you think of it. And Rom, just wanted to thank you so much for coming on. Is there any shout outs, any social media, any, I don't know, YouTube, Twitch, anything that you're getting into that you want to go ahead and plug?
Uh, I don't know, shout out to Team Queso.
To Team Queso. All right, sweet, man. Well, hey, best of luck on ladder and in future competitions. You're definitely. It's funny, I mentioned on Twitter the other day, like, who are the best hog players, or a couple weeks now ago, and you got so much love. So it's really a pleasure to finally have you on the channel. So thanks again for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
No problem. So, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Make sure you check out my YouTube partner, Bren Chong. You can see his information in the description below. Thanks again to Rom K for joining me. You can find out his information as well, his Twitter and stuff like that. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care, guys.